Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'm looking at something related to the engine, and when I start the car there is a slight vibration. Actually not really just at the start really, it's just actually when the engine is running. That is I notice a little bit of a vibration in here in the car, especially when the revs drop. And I thought, what it could be. Maybe the engine is a bit lumpy or anything like that. But no, it's not really any lumpiness in the engine. Actually, it's a slightly different kind of vibration. Almost like as if the engine mount is starting to get a little bit worn. So I'm gonna pop the bonnet and have a look at it. Okay, so there is a bit of a vibration from the engine, as you can see in here. Probably don't notice it much, but it shouldn't have happened. It should be perfectly stable. And there is this engine mount in here. And I'm not sure about its condition. I think I've spotted a problem. So as you can see in here, this area, the rubber is completely split. Yes. So if the rubber has split, that means that the dampening action of the bush has completely gone. So what these engine mounts do, the rubber is filled with oil inside, and that, in combination with the rubber, it dampens all of the vibrations so that they just are not transmitted to the rest of the car. So once this rubber starts to split in this area in here due to age, the oil starts to escape, and sometimes that's why you see some oil residue in funny places in this area. The oil starts to escape, and then all the dampening action goes. I have also the same problem on my wife's Mark III, where it's actually in even worse shape. All this ring around is actually completely rotten. And the funny thing is, her car is 3 years younger than mine and has less than half the mileage compared to mine. And it's even worse shape, which I find it's actually extraordinary. So, and this is why the engine is vibrating a little bit on idle, and that's why I feel it whilst I'm driving. And so now it's time to go and shopping for a new one. And here we go, just a few days later, here it is, the new engine mount. So that cost me only £53 through Car Parts for Less. I ordered this on a Friday and this arrived on a Monday, which is actually quite good. So there you go. Here it is. It's a Starline 1, and you can see, so this is bolts onto the chassis of the car, and this one bolts onto the engine. And you can see that it has this rubber material in here, which is actually filled with oil inside, and then it starts to split after some time. Especially this area here has a tendency to split after a few years. And now let's go through all the process of putting it in the car. So the amount of tools that this needs is actually fairly basic. So you just need a E10 reverse Torx socket for these bolts over here. You need a number 15 socket for these ones that bolted onto the chassis. You need a number 18. Not all socket sets have the number 18, but you need the number 18 for these bolts here on the top. And of course, needless to say, you need a ratchet. Probably an extension is useful. I have also an adapter because in order to swap between the E10 and the other sockets. and also an adapter for the big extension to the half-inch extension for the E10 as well. A wire brush, some WD-40, and very importantly a torque wrench, because you will have to torque all these bolts, Torx bolts, and the nuts that tighten onto the engine and the ones that fix onto the chassis. The other material that you will need is also a trolley jack, where you will basically support it under the car. You've put a block of wood on top of the trolley jack pad, and then you just raise the engine just very slightly, just to support it really, but don't forget to put a block of wood underneath. Don't put too much pressure, because you will be raising it from supporting it on the sump. Not too much pressure, just a little bit to raise, and then also to help you to release these things in here as well. Okay, now let's get on to the job. Whoops, that's not everything. Actually, I forgot one very important element. You see that some cars do still have the original under tray under the engine. So before you lift the engine with the block of wood and the trolley jack, you need one of these. It is basically a Torx screw number 30, Torx socket number 30, in order to undo all the bolts on the engine under tray. And then you can just slot in your trolley jack and lift the engine. Now let's just put a little bit of WD-40 on these rusty nuts and wait for them to work a little bit. Now number 18, and then let's just crack these nuts open. There you go, that wasn't too bad. Well, these nuts are actually fairly easy to remove, I have to say. Now moving on to the number 15, to remove the ones that are connected to the chassis rails. Yeah, this one is actually not too bad, but the other one on this side was actually very, very rusty, but it wasn't seized. Now, there you go, and here is the state of it. So you can see in here is actually quite flexible, and then the areas where you could see in here it is actually, it's oozing liquid. It's not the worst that I have seen actually, but nevertheless it's still a faulty item, it's still the original one, and it needs to be replaced. Now let's move on to the new one. I suppose I could have removed these ones first to make it easier to remove the bush itself. And now I can put the new one back in. So it's a little bit easier now. And then just put these back in. These bolts back in. I always try to do this by hand, simply due to the fact that it's easier in terms of filling. Right, so it is now time to tighten them, and this has to be torqued to 32 Newton meters. And now these bolts that bolt onto the chassis, which that will have to be torqued to 55 Newton meters. So again, socket number 15. And then last but not the least, these ones here, which will be torqued to 65 Newton meters. You can reuse the same nuts, so it's absolutely no problem with that. I'll probably just raise the engine just a tad more. And then the bush will fall into place. And use the socket number 18. Okay, so that's it. All in place now. All the bolts have been torqued to the manufacturer's specifications. And that's it. One new top engine mount replaced. That was actually not too bad work to do. It took me probably less than half an hour, something like that, from start to finish. And now let's see. Let's start the engine and see how it behaves. Very nice, no vibration at all whatsoever. Really happy with it. And there you go, one top engine mount replacement that's been done, and it's actually not too bad of a job. I know there are actually two other engine mounts in this car as well, and but I don't think they are really that bad for the time being, but I'll also find out for the time I own the car. So this job was specific for the 1.6 Duratec engine. It is very similar to other variants of the Focus, the ones that have a similar mount to this one. The only thing that can differ, it will be a slightly different mount, but at least they have two bolting points on the engine and two on the chassis as well. Also, they do some other engine models probably have a slightly different torque settings, and also different bolt sizes, where you just use a slightly different socket. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.